The top of the mountain, though, is suddenly very, very competitive. Buffalo has
Always
looked
good.
monster. They beat Washington 37-3. They've forced 5 turnovers. They've outscored their last opponent 75-13. Miami just put 70 on the board against Denver without Jalen Waddle, and the Dolphins look awesome. Kansas City just destroyed the Bears. Granted, it was the Bears. Philly defense really looks good. They lost Jalen. They lost Javon Hargrave, and they lost the great safety. But they still have replaced these guys with good young players, and they haven't missed a beat. They're the defending champs. They're looking great. Dallas looks good if you catch them on the right day. Who is the team that you think is the best in that top tier? If the top tier is Bills, Dolphins, KC, Niners, Eagles, Cowboys, who do you think's the best team? If it's the Niners, who's the number one challenger?
Well, first off, don't discount the Cleveland Browns. Their
Okay.
defense has been head and shoulders above everybody else's, including the 49ers so far. They're playing otherworldly defense through 3 weeks. We'll see if they can
Especially up front.
sustain that. But
And
Deshaun
Denzel Ward,
Watson,
too.
yeah, and everybody's playing the replay of Deshaun Watson throwing backwards, and rightfully so. That was a terrible play. But we also need to mention that he played his best game in a Browns uniform. And if he doesn't need to be great with that defense. If Deshaun Watson just starts showing competence again, all of a sudden that's at least a tier 2 team. Right now they're a tier 3 team because I haven't seen enough offensive consistency, but the defense itself is carrying everything for Cleveland. So anyway, to me, balance always wins the day. That's why I talk about Cleveland needing Watson and the offense to balance out a great defensive performance. That's why I think the 49ers look so tantalizing, because they've built a top 3 offense and a top 3 defense so far. That's why I'd be wary of Miami. We haven't seen this exact movie before from the Dolphins, but we've seen a similar one. Last year, they're number 1 in offensive efficiency. They're blowing the roof off of teams, and then they showed up and played the 49ers, and the 49ers beat them up, right? It was because they couldn't really play defense at the level that needed to be played to keep up with the 49ers. And they're so far through 3 games, it's an average defense again for Miami. And two, just that brand of football doesn't tend to age with the season as well. The weather's going to get worse. Defenses are going to get tougher. Guys are going to get hurt. So you're playing, big time cohesion football right now in Miami. Everything's firing on full cylinders in September. Let's see if it's still firing on all cylinders in November and December. That's really, really important to watch. So yeah, a lot of respect to what they did right now. But when we look to see how well these things will age, balance always ages in the National Football League. The ability to play defense and offense is so huge. We see the media fawning over teams putting up a ton of points every single season in September. But it's the teams that have the double-edged sword ready to go, along with a good special teams unit. Those are the teams that can really get the job done moving forward. So I love Buffalo in the AFC for that reason. I love the 49ers in the NFC for that reason. You have to like Kansas City because they're the one team that has that cheat code at quarterback. The only team that we've seen over the past few years to be able to win a Super Bowl without extraordinary balance has been Kansas City. And that's because Patrick Mahomes just takes that offense into that FU level, right? He can take it into another mode when he needs to. And he did it to beat the 49ers, and he did it to beat the Eagles. And obviously you can't discount the Eagles because they look like a balanced team right now as well. Dallas, we'll see. To me, Dallas, Larry, I get a front runner vibe from Dallas.
I do too.
They're a boom or bust team.
They're a bully
Right?
team.
Yeah, they're a bully team that's going to gamble for interceptions and they're going to gamble for sacks, but they're not good against the run, right? So if another team starts playing downhill against Dallas and they lost their corner who's good at preying on all those picks and Trayvon Diggs, another team
Yeah.
plays downhill, all of a sudden Dallas looks ordinary even against Arizona. And I think that's why the 49ers have beaten Dallas 2 years in a row, because they make sure they don't fall behind a team that preys on interceptions, that's able to pin its ears back and rush. Fall behind Dallas, it's tough. But if you get ahead, all of a sudden they lose that swagger. They lose that style of play that makes them so dangerous. So I view Dallas as a cut below the 49ers and the Eagles in the NFC. And then I look at teams like the Bills and the Chiefs in the AFC, and the Dolphins are banging on the door trying to join the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. And I think it's going to take a little bit better defensive play for them. On the other side, you might have the Cleveland Browns banging on the door, but it's going to take a little bit better offensive play for them to meet the favorites there in the AFC in Buffalo and Kansas City.
And who gets Jonathan Taylor? Does he go to Cleveland to replace Nick Chubb? Does Dallas get Jonathan Taylor? Does Miami get Jonathan Taylor? Do the Eagles get Jonathan Taylor? I mean, Jonathan Taylor could swing, the power structure at the top in the NFL as well. We got almost 1,400 people in the room. Let me mention this one sponsor here. Today's show brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You see them in the top left corner there. Underdog Fantasy give fans a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. Check out their weekly pick 'em players. When you pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on their game stats. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, but you can win real money. And for a limited time, you can sign up using the promo code KRUG, KRUEG, and they'll match your first deposit up to $500. Use the link in the description to claim this offer. I'm going Brock Purdy higher than 229.5 passing yards and James Conner higher than 57.5 rushing yards. Who is Kyle Shanahan's number one rival? If you had asked me that, I would normally say Sean McVay, but now I'm thinking it could be Sirianni in Philly. It could very well be the Green Bay coach, LaFleur. It could be it could be it could be a number of guys. Really, it could be Mike McDaniel in Miami. If I said to you Kyle's number, or it could be Andy Reid. I mean, I think Andy Reid and Kyle are in that same neighborhood of elite play callers. Who do you think if you gave Kyle, he probably wouldn't answer this honestly at a presser. But if you gave him truth serum, or you're just sitting around in Cabo in the offseason throwing footballs with him and Joe Staley, Kyle, who's your number one rival? He says,
well, I think for a rivalry to happen, there have to be enough meaningful meetings between the two parties, right? And the only one that really qualifies is Sean McVay. I know it's been one-sided except for the really big NFC championship game where the Rams got the 49ers. Now, if you talk about nemesis, as far as somebody that Shanahan needs to beat, I think Andy Reid is definitely on that list. He beat him in the Super Bowl, and then they won the game last year. Kansas City did at Levi Stadium. If the 49ers meet the Chiefs one more time here in the Super Bowl, that's going to turn into a full-fledged rivalry. That's when that will be, you'll have the critical amount of games, the minimum amount of games that turn that into true rivalry. It's just tough with Kansas City being on the opposite side of the bracket over in the AFC. And again, like Sirianni, I guess they faced what was Sirianni. Yeah, I think Sirianni was the coach when they beat him in 2021, early in the season. But it wasn't that 2022 NFC Championship game wasn't really a fair fight. And Brock Purdy's hurt so early in the game. Everybody kind of just chalks that up as a game that the 49ers wanted a mulligan in, and they may get a chance this year. So maybe by the end of this season, the Sirianni-Shanahan rivalry will have grown. But again, the only one with that critical mass so far of games is Shanahan-McVay, in my opinion. I just need to see more back and forth between some of these coaches. Same thing with the Dolphins. They played Mike McDaniel once. McDaniel looked pretty pissed when they lost. He wanted to beat the old boss, right? But
yeah,
I mean, it's just a one-off at this point. We need more. We need another 49ers. We need a rematch of the Super Bowl from January 1985, Dolphins 49ers, for that to turn into an actual coaching rivalry.